So in case you didn't know, this past summer at ICAST, Shimano introduced a new version of probably one of their most important reels in the North American market. That of course is going to be the SLX XT A. And I happen to have one in my hand right now, as you can see. Apparently Tackle Warehouse had the XG ratios available, so I took advantage of a recent sale and picked one up. So let's check it out. Man, that's a lot of paperwork. Okay, and so I kind of pulled a fast one on you guys by mixing in rotating footage of the old reel along with the new reel. And how many of you guys can tell the difference between them? Well, here's the old SLX XT and here's the new SLX XT A. So let's check them out side by side. And from a distance it's hard to tell the difference between the two, but when you inspect them up close, you can definitely tell there are some changes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all the changes that I found on this reel. Here's a side view, you can definitely see one of the changes, but let's go down the list. Now the first obvious change, or maybe not so obvious change, is going to be the color. The new reel is now a bluish gray color, while the old reel had a black frame with dark gray side plates. That brings us to the second change. The new reel no longer has a two-tone color scheme when it comes to the frame and side plates. The frame and side plates are now both this grayish blue color. And obviously the logo color on the palm side plate has changed from this neon electric blue to a more mature, reserved silver. And let me know in the comments which one you prefer. I kinda prefer the blue, just because it gives the reel a little bit more character. Now, the next change is going to be on the spool tension knob. The new reel spool tension knob is kind of like a really dark grayish black with blue trim. The old one, spool tension, was bright blue with some silver trim. But other than that, everything else is exactly the same on both of these reels. So that means both reels are going to feature the same metal Hagane frame with graphite side plates, same blue spool, same gear ratios, same line capacity, same chrome trim piece on the front, which I like, and both of them still feature the black nose piece. Both feature the same handle lengths. Now both of these reels are the XG ratio. So that means they can have the same 96mm handle, asymmetrical knobs with the same chrome end caps, which I think is good. Both of them are made in Malaysia, no surprise. And both of them feature the same low bearing count of 4+1. So it seems like this is a pretty lazy effort from Shimano, because this XTA is pretty much the exact same reel as the old reel. So why did Shimano even bother to even claim this is a new reel? Well, there is one change that you can't see right now that I'm going to show you here in a moment, but that is the inclusion of what they call silent tune, which has been trickled down from their more expensive reels. So with that being said, I'm going to pull out the scales and we're going to see if Shimano did anything to the spool, like made it lighter or maybe given it different brakes or whatnot. So let's check that out. So I brought the scale out and let's see if Shimano has snuck in some kind of weight savings with the new reel. Now they feel pretty much exactly the same in my hand, so I seriously doubt it, but let's check anyway. So 7.193 for the old reel, the new reel 7.29, so it actually gained about 1/10 of an ounce. Now that could be down to, I guess, the amount of grease they put into each reel from the factory, because the silent tune upgrade does not add any kind of weight. But like I said, when you hold them both in your hand, one after the other, they feel pretty much exactly the same. So I brought out the spool scale and let's see if Shimano snuck in a lighter spool with the new XTA. So of course that means I'm gonna weigh the old spool first. Okay, here it is. Now it's been a while since I've weighed this spool. I think it weighed somewhere like 15.5 grams, but let's see what the scale says. 15.72 grams. All right, so let's weigh the new spool. Now luckily on the XTA, the side plate is still spring loaded, not surprisingly. And man, these spools are a pain to get out. Okay, here's the new spool. Still has 4 brake arms and looks like 2 of them are activated, 2 are deactivated, and 15.997, so pretty much 16 grams. Let's weigh that again. So old spool 15.72, new spool 15.99. So if you take a look at the spools, they are pretty much identical. Same depth, same width. Now the new spool does have a lot of grease on the spool shaft, but I mean, I don't think that's going to be worth 0.3 of a gram. So I wonder where that weight came from. I mean, the only other thing it could be is the new feature that Shimano implemented in this new XTA, which is the silent tune. See the silent tune on the new spool versus the old one. So now let's go into depth about this silent tune feature. So now I'm going to explain to everybody exactly what silent tune is. Now, just a brief history lesson. Shimano first implemented their first generation of silent tune in the 2016 METANIUM MGL, that bright silver one. And what it was a spring that they put in between the spool bearing and the spool. And that spring was supposed to keep the spool bearing locked into place and not move during the cast. So in theory, I guess during the cast, the spool bearing could move around a little bit, and if you lock it in place, that would give you a smoother cast and technically the ability to cast a little bit farther. But then in 2018, Shimano changed up their silent tune, and instead of using a spring, they started using O-rings. And this version of silent tune, I guess the second generation, can vary from reel to reel. Like the more expensive reels, you can have an O-ring on the spool bearing itself as well as the spool shaft. Some reels will have like 3 O-rings and some reels will only have 2. But right here is silent tune. There's O-ring there and there's an O-ring right there. So you can see the XTA spool does not have a spool bearing. So I don't know why they have an O-ring right there. And on the other side, some Shimano reels will have a Silent Tune O-ring on the opposite end, but it looks like on the A, it's not there, unfortunately. So basically, this O-ring will slide into the, I guess, inner race of the bearing and provide some kind of a seal. Supposedly, I guess, only the inner portion of the bearing will be spinning. Now, I don't know how effective it's going to be on the SLX XT, but I personally thought that Silent Tune was a gimmick technology from Shimano up until the 22 ALDEBARAN BFS. Anyone that has that reel or the 23 Conquest BFS, you'll know that those reels have this eerie, silent, ridiculously smooth casting feel. It's like the spool is just rotating in midair, and that's Silent Tune. Silent Tune is giving you that sensation. Now, of course, the ALDEBARAN BFS and the Conquest BFS use magnetic brakes, while of course the other Shimano reels use centrifugal, which have rubbing parts. So I don't think it's going to be quite as effective in smoothing out the cast, but we're going to find out. But that in a nutshell is Silent Tune. So there we go, guys, the unboxing and tabletop analysis of the quote-unquote new SLX XT A. And it turns out all Shimano did was change up the color on the body, some badges and the spool tension, and added a couple of O-rings to the spool shaft. And that's it. Now, personally, I think the old reel is better looking. So all in all, at least visually and on paper, this quote-unquote new SLX XT A is probably the laziest effort from Shimano in a long time. They've had some lazy efforts in recent years when it came to refreshing some of their reels mid-cycle. Personally, what Shimano should have done as well, and it would have really cost them nothing, was to give us the 6-arm SVS Infinity. I mean, all they had to do was use the same brake hub as the standard SLX. That would have made this reel a lot more versatile, as it would have been a lot more forgiving for skipping. But who knows, maybe they'll do it in the next version of this reel. But the good news is that even though the changes were pretty much mostly cosmetic, what also stayed the same was the super low price, $129, same as the old reel, which is extremely shocking considering pretty much every manufacturer is raising the price of their reels. And let's not get it twisted, the SLX XT A with the SVS Infinity brake system, if you know how to dial it in, will destroy a lot of much more expensive reels. I mean, I'll put this up against any DAIWA any day, and I would favor it to outcast most DAIWAs out there. And because of that, the SLX XT A still remains one of the best bang for your buck reels in the world. I mean, at $129, what reel out there is going to stand up to this thing? And because the reel is such a bargain for what you get performance-wise, this reel is always pretty much on Tackle Warehouse's best sellers page. Hasn't been on there recently, but maybe in the future with this new model that'll change. But what we're going to do next is we're going to spool up both the new reel and the old reel, and we're going to go out on the water and cast them side by side to see if the Silent Tune is really going to give us any kind of noticeable, tangible increase in performance, whether it be casting distance or even just casting smoothness. So be on the lookout for that. Now, let me know in the comments if you plan on picking up one of these new SLX XT A's, or if you think that Shimano's effort in refreshing this reel was just too little and you're just going to keep your old XTs. Alright guys, thanks a lot.